All right, so here's the thing that nobody tells you about timeshares. Um, they're not just a bad investment. They're not just an annoying sales pitch that you sit through one time while you're on vacation in some tropical place. They are, and I say this with complete confidence, having heard thousands of stories now, and I can say this with complete confidence, they're some of the most unhinged, outrageous, and honestly just sometimes flat out hilarious situations that human beings are capable of getting into. And I hear them every single day. My name is Brock. I live in Sisters, Oregon. You probably never heard of it. It's a little mountain town outside of Bend. I ride mountain bikes, I wear flannel, and I'm probably the last person on earth that you'd expect to be deep in the world of timeshare law. And yet, here we are. I work with a team of attorneys that get people out of their timeshares, and as a result, I hear these stories every single day. I'm going to keep my company name anonymous, and because the purpose of this podcast is just to share these crazy, hilarious, wacky, scandalous stories. Okay. What I can tell you is that my phone rings constantly, and the things that I hear on the other end are absolutely insane. So, and just to give you a couple examples, preview, we're talking about people who paid six figures for something they've used twice in their life. We're talking about sweet elderly couples that are literally held hostage in a room for 6 to 8 hours at times, having their driver's licenses taken from them and being high pressured into contracts that they don't understand, into things that they don't understand that they're signing, and therefore signing these lifelong binding contracts that have inheritance risk to their kids. I hear stories of people's credit absolutely being destroyed, people being foreclosed on, people thinking that it's traditional real estate, really people not knowing what the hell they're getting into, period. And so some of these stories are going to make you genuinely feel so bad for people. Some of them are going to make you feel angry. And, I'll be honest with you, some of them are just going to be hilarious because as humans, sometimes we just make the dumbest decisions, myself included. Fortunately, never purchased a timeshare, never will, because of the line of the work that I found myself in. But it's hard to explain. So, we're going to hold space for all of it. The courage that people have had to try to get out of these, some of the outrage, the tragedy, the absurdity, some of the humorous stories. I'm going to tell you some of my just daily interactions with people, and just really sometimes the level of stupidity that comes with it all. So that's what the show is. There's no guests yet, no fancy studio, just me, a hippie looking hat, like I'm somebody from the Pacific Northwest. And if that sounds like your kind of thing, subscribe, save it with your friends, and most importantly, if you have a story to tell me your story. I would love to hear it. And with that, let's get into it. So, the challenge in starting this podcast was, where do I even start? Because literally every week I hear the most absolutely insane stories. So I'm going to get into one that I heard this last week. I had a daughter of, I don't know, she was probably, I'd guess, mid-20s, maybe early 30s, call in. She had gotten herself into a timeshare contract with a company that I will not name for now. And she purchased this with her father. And they were high pressured into it to the point of where, after hours and hours of this pressure and literally saying, hey, do you not get it, sales lady? We have no money to put towards this. They were already in financial peril. So instead of do the right thing after reviewing their finances and just succumb to the fact that you're not going to sell these people, the sales lady did something really interesting. She got the bright idea of pulling this father-daughter team a little bit close and said, hey, what if I just loan you the money for the down payment? You see where this is going? And sure as shit, she loaned them $900 to cover the down payment. Now here's where it gets even better. Normally, you would never, ever, ever get away with this. I mean, companies, major timeshare companies, and again, I'm not going to name which one this was, but they were a prominent one. But companies like Wyndham, Hilton Grand Vacations, Marriott Vacation Club, they have checks and balances in place because they have such a black eye on the industry. So, luckily for this lady, her boyfriend was the manager. So she gets up off of the table. She goes and asks the boyfriend if it's okay. She cash apps this young woman the money for the down payment. They sign the paperwork, and the deal is done. So now they're calling me this past week, 2 years later, still in financial hardship because of the monthly loan payments they're making for this stupid timeshare. It's put them in worse financial peril, and now they've stopped making the payments. Well, what happens when you stop making the payments on a timeshare loan? They turn you into collections. So credit had been destroyed. Her father's credit had been wrecked. I don't know how many points their score had dropped, but it was significant. And they called me looking for a solution. Now, a lot of times, the hardest part about my job is that in law, typically you have to have some kind of proof, right? Now, again, I'm not an attorney. I don't give financial advice. I work with a team of attorneys that dictate the most sound plan for the client, right? But I'm smart enough to know that what happened to this girl is not just misrepresentation. This was not just a little omission of a certain fact in her contract. This is straight up fraud. It's a violation of the Truth in Lending Act, is what it is. I mean, go and look that up and you'll see you cannot loan someone the money to purchase your product. It's like in sales, that should be the most common sense, absolute no thing that one does. But yet, this young sales lady at the timeshare company had commission breath, was so desperate for that sale, she ends up cash apping her the money. Now, I had a couple of questions, and I was like literally in shock. And I was messaging this girl back and forth as I was kind of reviewing this case. And I just kept saying, wow. I mean, this just gets more egregious. Now, smart thing this girl did was she actually went back in her Cash App and she sent me screenshots of these transactions. She had the woman's name. She had her Cash App handle. That's what we call a good old paper trail. So that case is underway. It's in the attorney's hands now. I'm not really seeing the day-to-day of it, but when you are able to pull some kind of hard evidence like that, it brings me so much delight. And if this, I shouldn't laugh. But the stupidity of some of these timeshare salespeople, it never ceases to astound me. Like the lengths that they will go. So that's going to be, I would imagine, a slam dunk case for our lead attorney. He's going to just knock that one down. She'll probably not only get her contract canceled, she'll probably get a full refund and maybe some damages for the stupidity of what has happened to her. So that's probably the most egregious story that I heard this past week. And, what's hard, just to go back to this, just to educate a little bit for people that don't know this, we get a lot of people that call and, they say, I was lied to. And, and I sit back and I listen, and a huge part of my job is just to listen. And they just kind of vomit everything that they were told that wasn't true. And there's certain things that are really, really common. I'll give you a handful. A lot of times the salespeople, I should do a whole episode on this separately because it's so common, but maybe plant the seed, we'll do a future episode. They tell them that they can rent these timeshares out. They pitch it as an investment. They say, oh, you're going to own in fabulous Las Vegas for 1 week, once a year or every other year. Did you know, they start pressing the greed button to this client after they've worn them down for 3 hours. They start to say, did you know the professional rodeo comes into Las Vegas? Did you know we have professional football games and shows and NASCAR races and God knows whatever else. And they manipulate them into thinking that they can make a enormous amount of money by renting their timeshare out for that week. So that usually pushes these people over the edge. They're like, okay, great. If I can pay for my maintenance fees, if I can even make a little cash flow, like, sweet, sign me up. This is only $20,000 versus getting into a single family home and traditional real estate. They sign the paperwork. Then what often happens, I said I wasn't going to get into this, and I'm getting into this. The salesperson will pull them aside. I can't tell you how many hundreds of times I've heard this. The salesperson will pull them aside. They will say, here's my personal cell phone number. I promise you, I'm your boy, I'm your girl, I'm your homie. I will take care of you. I will show you exactly how to set up the rental stuff. You know exactly where this is going. And if this has happened to you, please let me know, because this is one of the most easy things that attorneys can use to cancel the contracts is false representation around rental claims. So they'll give them this phone number, and maybe 1 week goes by. Now, the salesperson is hoping to God that client doesn't even call them, right? Because a lot of times that's what happens. They go on vacation, they get busy, they come home, they get back to real life, and they're just not thinking about the timeshare until the maintenance fees bills comes for the year, right? They're not really thinking about it. But for the few that do sometimes try to call and say, hey, I'm interested in renting out my timeshare, crickets. I should get a cricket button. That would be really cool. They hear nothing back. The salesperson goes MIA completely. Most of the time, and I've heard this from former timeshare salespeople, they give out some shitty, worthless Google Voice number that they never check. It's just this false security blanket for the client to think, oh, they've got my back. They were really genuine. They act like they were their best friend in the sales presentation, and then they just disappear on them. So that's what happens really, really commonly. So, and then to make matters worse, and again, I'm not an attorney, but I have had the privilege of just reading through with my own eyes many of these timeshare developers' contracts, because a lot of times the client sends me their contract, even if I don't ask for it. So you start to read through these contracts. And what they say very clearly in most of the contracts is you are prohibited from renting out your timeshare, period. Most of them just flat out don't let you rent them out. Or if they do have any mention of a rental program, we're talking like 60-40 split, 70-30 split, stipulation after stipulation after stipulation, red tape that they have to go through in order to rent that out. The renter coming in has to be approved by the developer. Like, this is not an easy thing, right? Like, they're not making this easy as they promised in the sales presentation. So I would say that greed button that is pushed around being able to rent out their timeshare is probably one of the single biggest things that I hear over and over and over. So quite interesting. I'm going to wrap for today. If you have been screwed over in a timeshare situation and have a story to tell, something egregious, something juicy, something terrible, something funny, something awful. And I hope I don't sound facetious and acting like I don't care. I'm in the line of work that I am because I do care. I get so much joy and satisfaction out of seeing somebody finally get out of this life-binding contract, be able to free up more money to fund their grandkids' 529 fund, to be able to finally just book an Expedia vacation without the commitment of the long-term contracts, and to move on with their life. It brings me immense joy to get people out of these bad situations. In fact, when people ask me what I do for a living, that's often what I'll say, just with like a half smile, is that I get people out of bad situations. And they'll look at me super weird, and I'll say, yeah, I get them out of timeshares. And everybody laughs, because people know that these things are not good, but yet what's staggering is, according to the statistics that these timeshare developers put out, they're still selling billions and billions of dollars worth of these every single year. They're repackaging them. They're making them appeal to the younger audiences now. And it shocks me to the living daylights of no other that people are still buying these things. So I guess I'm going to have a job for the foreseeable future, but my passion is to educate people, to let them know that there are ways out of these contracts. If you're in a bad situation, feel free to reach out. I've got my email in the link below. I'm happy just to walk you through your options. No hard sale here. I just want to get people out of horrific situations that are causing a financial burden, keeping them up at night, and draining their bank accounts, because these companies have gotten away with this for far too long. And consumer protection law is a beautiful thing because it is designed to protect the consumer and stick it to these companies who are greedy, who are lining their pockets, and who are lying their faces off to really, really good human beings. So that's it. Again, if you like the show, I'm just getting started with it, so give it a thumbs up, subscribe, it would mean the world. And if this has been entertaining or funny or landed in any way, share it with somebody, and I'll see y'all on the next video.